What are you guys' thoughts on animal abuse? I'll start with one at a time. So, what are your thoughts on animal abuse in general?
It's just sick.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see it, it just kind of strikes your heart a little bit. Like,
Right.
how did that get so bad?
Right, yeah, absolutely. What do you think is the worst part of animal abuse? Like, what is the thing that makes it so wrong?
Because it's a living being.
Right.
Anyone can identify with that. Like, they need...
I think it's because, like, take dogs, for example. They unconditionally love you. How could you hurt something that just has so much love inside, you know? Always
Right.
happy to see you. Like, how could you hurt something like that?
Right, yeah. And animals in general are often like that.
Right?
Yeah.
You know?
Any animals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's mainly in mammals.
Yeah,
You know,
mostly.
very, very loving
Not sure
and
if reptiles
affectionate.
are-
Well, I'll tell you.
shows the same affection.
Well, I tell you, you know what? I have turtles.
Yeah.
You know, and they come up to me, and you know, they'll sit on my foot and stuff like that, and
Right.
you know, and
I'm not for turtle abuse.
Not either. I'm not
reptilian
either.
abuse.
Right, I got you.
Dolphins have, you know, mates for life, and they, you know, mate for pleasure. So I wouldn't, you know, that's sad putting them in a tank. Like, I'm totally against that.
Like aquariums, basically.
It's destructive.
Okay.
Money-making business.
Ah, there you go. Exploitation, animal abuse for profit.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. So then the next question, basically you guys pretty much, you empathize with animals, you're against the suffering itself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're against like the, you know, the violence, whatever, killing, whatever it turns into, you think it's wrong, right? And you mentioned aquariums, that's animal abuse, you're against that. How do you feel about, let's say, animal agriculture? Would you consider that to be abuse, animal abuse?
I don't know. Again, I don't have enough information to like make a sweeping statement, but I feel like no, I don't think so.
No?
As in like a chicken coop? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, raising animals to be,
slaughtered.
right.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen those documentaries about how they treat those animals and keeping them in small cages, and I don't think that that's right.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I do think we need to eat, and whatever the most natural process for us to get there, I'm for. And I don't know. Yeah, those mass farms and keeping animals in small cages is not okay with me.
Right. So that's animal abuse, right?
Yeah.
But not the actual killing itself is animal abuse.
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's how we've always eaten our food, I guess.
Right. But that, so is it that it's not animal abuse, or it's an acceptable form of animal abuse?
Yeah, I think it's just the circle of life.
It's just the circle of life.
You gotta eat.
I mean, I don't eat meat, but
You don't eat meat? That's interesting. Why not?
I just don't care for the flavor of it, honestly.
Are you like vegetarian or vegan or anything?
I eat fish.
Oh, you eat fish?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you like the taste of fish?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You like the smell of fish?
No.
Okay,
I
that's
think
interesting.
it's easier to mask the flavor of fish with, or bring it out more with different flavors than it is with like chicken. I don't know, anything that has like a chewy, tendony kind of texture is gross to me.
Okay, all right. What about you? Do you?
I eat meat, yes.
Right.
I've also seen documentaries. I've actually taken a picture of a chicken truck because I was just shocked that I saw it in the middle of Atlanta.
Right.
Because I usually don't see them in the middle of Atlanta. And it was sad and kind of disturbing. And, you know, the way that they go about having them live in such a rough, you're going to kill them, so might as well just keep them. We're all together, whatever, it doesn't matter. But it's still kind of inhumane.
Right.
Just the treatment. But, I mean, but we ingest it, so,
Right.
I mean, that's your choice, right?
Right. Would you consider that animal abuse, or?
I guess it could be a form of abuse. But again, it's the way that it's regulated and people's choice to eat it.
Right.
Right.
So, even if people choose to eat, whether people choose to do it or not to do it, does the act itself make it not abuse, or?
I guess it's the way you justify things. You know,
Okay.
we all have to we justify our behavior. So.
Right. So there's like certain, like acceptable forms of abuse. You guys would say, right?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't
it's all
say that.
subjective.
Yeah.
It's all really subjective.
Right. Okay. All right.
I don't know. I'm generally against killing in all manners.
Right.
But I am also for feeding people that
Right.
need food.
Right. Okay. So you view it as like a necessity, right,
Yeah.
to eat meat?
Yeah.
I think being a vegetarian or a vegan, you're making the decision to say I'm against killing. That is a form of abuse,
Right.
and I choose to live this lifestyle.
Right. Right.
But so that's kind of where those who do eat meat and do hunt and things like that.
Right.
It's also animalistic. We are animals too, so
Right.
we have to kind of abide by human condition, and we can be animalistic as well.
Right. Okay. All right.
Justify
Okay.
the behavior.
So, you mentioned that you don't eat meat,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, do you have the belief that we don't need to eat meat, or?
I think I'm in a position where I can make that choice. I don't think all people are.
Right. Okay.
So I mean, yeah, I think you can be sustained without meat.
Right.
And get other forms of protein, but I do think protein is important.
Right. Okay. All right. If you were to cut fish out of your diet, what do you think your health would decrease, or?
Yeah, I mean, only because I know I would probably eat like more carbohydrates and
Right.
sugary things if I didn't have something as filling.
Okay. All right. What about you?
What was the question?
Do you believe that meat is like a necessity to your health? Like you need to eat it?
I think protein is a necessity, and you can get it in different forms.
Right.
I think it's a choice,
Okay.
personal choice.
So, if you were to cut meat out of your diet, what would be the negative consequences to that?
I think that I've gone back and forth between eating meat and being, tofu diet and soy diets and
Tofu diet. Oh,
Yeah.
soy diet.
and I enjoy a good steak, especially like, if I've had a good workout.
Right.
I enjoy a nice piece of meat.
Right.
Fillets are delicious.
Right.
So I think it would just get used to it. I
So it's
guess.
just like a pleasure thing, right? Like it would be less pleasure in your diet, kind of deal.
Yeah, I guess. And
Okay.
I have pleasure. I love all food, so
Right.
I would just modify. But I choose not to eat a soy diet.
Right. Well, you don't need to eat a soy diet in order to cut meat out of your diet. I wouldn't advise that.
Vegan.
Yeah.
Or
I wouldn't advise a soy diet. No.
How much
no, I
protein do
wouldn't
you
be a
eat?
strict soy.
Me a day?
Yeah.
It can be anywhere between 110 to 125 grams a day.
Can you count? You think? Like, are you like? very
Well, I
meticulous
intuitively eat, but I know how much, because I do meal plans for people and stuff like that, and so I'm very good off the top of the head how much
Right.
everything has. You know?
I never count that stuff. But I try to generally eat around the healthy sphere.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what about you? Let's say if you used to cut meat out of your diet. I think I already asked you this,
Mhm.
and you said protein. You'd have less protein, or what was the?
Well, I don't eat meat, so.
Right. So-
But if I cut fish out of my diet,
Yeah.
I'd probably, yeah. I don't know. I'd probably, and I have been, honestly, I've been eating a lot more carbs recently.
Right.
Very inconsistent.
Right. Okay.
My diet. But yeah, it just depends. I some days my appetite is super big.
Right.
But
But-
other days, yeah, I can feel full off of just like a smaller meal.
Right.
And usually, if I'm paying attention, I'll try to stick to like nuts and fruits and fish
Right.
and vegetables. But if I'm not, then I'll have a bagel with cream cheese.
So you don't think there would be really any negative consequences to you cutting fish out of your diet?
I'm not sure. I have no idea. Honestly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I haven't played with that yet.
All right. So basically, the reason why I'm asking is just kind of getting down to the root of why you would eat meat and if you think it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not necessary, but there's the suffering that is required to get it, is that abuse or suffering still justified?
Yeah.
Nice question.
Yeah. I mean, I still think what I originally said.
Right.
Yeah.
So even let's say you don't need to do it, but you do it because you like it, like you get pleasure from it, right? And so that makes it okay? Or?
Well, I still think that not everyone has the choice to cut meat out of their diet.
Right. What type of person wouldn't have the choice? Or
I don't know, like people in the rainforest or something who don't really have access to, like, you know, the kinds of foods that we have.
like what kind of foods, for example?
I don't know. So if I were to be a vegan or something and I got all of my protein off of nuts and soy and
Right.
whatever else, you wouldn't have access to that in more remote areas. You know, like people that live in more like uneducated areas don't really know that kind of stuff either.
Okay.
And I think as long as they're getting some kind of, I don't know, I think when I see people like on the streets and stuff and they're asking me for food, I always try to get them something with protein in it.
Right. Okay. So, like, say, for example, like, for a piece of fish, how many grams of protein do you think is in a piece of fish for you? Would you
I
say?
don't know, 20?
20? Okay. So, off the top of my head, a cup of quinoa is 16 grams of protein.
Oh, really?
Right.
Oh, nice.
Which is way higher than
Didn't
that.
know that.
Depends on the size of the cut of fish, right? But
That's true.
you're saying that you get on average 15 to 20 grams of protein, right? One cup of quinoa pretty much possesses all the grams of protein that you eat for the entire day.
Cool.
That's just one cup, right? A cup and a half of cooked chickpeas is 26 grams of protein,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Uh,
But I'm saying like these like people in more remote areas
Right.
don't have access to quinoa and chickpeas.
they don't have access to quinoa and chickpeas.
Not necessarily, depending on what region you're from.
Well, what region would you use as an example for that?
You know, like the Mississippi Delta.
Mississippi Delta, they don't have access to grains. Or
Quinoa?
Quinoa or rice or wild rice. Or,
I mean, wild rice, but a lot of them don't have the education.
right. So it's just a matter of
know that,
education
yeah.
to know that you can eat those things.
Yeah, or how to grow them.
Right.
Even.
Right. Okay.
A lot of the times people are just trying to eat.
Right. Absolutely. Well, what about like here in the Western world for people like us? Right. Is it justified? Is it a justified form of like abuse or suffering, however you want to categorize it, or no?
No, I mean, yeah, for people who are aware of, you know, what the consequences are, then I think it's, yeah, wrong.
Then you're not okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you?
It's a difficult question to answer. I think our culture, we are getting more familiar with eating quinoa and chickpeas and
Right.
eating kind of healthier and things like that. And but I think it's just our culture of pleasure and stimulation.
Right.
Constantly having the advertisements, and it's
Right.
just a culture of more is better.
Right. Is that a justification for the abuse or the suffering that animal agriculture causes?
I just think it's an outcome of our society,
Right.
and basically the more you advertise and the more that people want things, it's just a money-making business.
Right.
So you're producing as much meat as fast as possible at the lowest cost.
Right.
So it's a demand.
Right.
It's all economics, right?
Right.
It's a circle of trying to get as much out there as you can at
Right.
the quickest possible rate.
Right.
But
I don't think it's a justification of
Right.
abuse.
So you're
but
against
it. Just happens.
Right.
It's just an adaptation of our culture.
Right. Right.
yeah, and I think it all comes back down to education. Like even someone like me who didn't know that there was that much protein in quinoa and chickpeas.
Being
Right.
aware of your own intake, right?
Yeah.
Right. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe education, maybe educating, starting at schools and starting education there. I mean, I had never had yoga in my high school, never had health classes, But then again, young kids are not going to really pay attention
Right.
kind of stuff either. So when is a good time?
I think the
introduce
reason that we have some of the biases that we have now is because we grew up on the food pyramid,
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So I think some of that stuff does stick.
The sad diet. It's standard American
Maybe
diet.
give people more options, right? You
Right.
don't need, I mean, you don't necessarily need the food pyramid, right?
Right.
It's just a suggestion.
Right.
Well, wasn't it like a marketing thing to sell a
Marketing
bunch
pyramid scheme. Oh my God, how
Right. Yeah. So the sad diet was made by animal agriculture to sell more products. Yeah.
There you go. See,
Yeah.
it's just economic money making business.
Right. So if you knew that, like, you could exit I guess the animal abuse of animal agriculture and things like that, then you would move away from animal agriculture, or would you still finance it or
Yeah, I
participate
would
in
probably finance it less.
it? Less.
Probably bring it on a lower scale. I still think that babies need milk.
Right. From their mothers.
But mothers don't always produce their own milk.
Okay. All right.
For the example, my sister just had a baby and was having a hard time.
She's having a hard time.
Yeah, feeding her own child, and not everyone can.
Okay.
So, I think milk is a necessity.
Right. So if it's a necessity, then it's okay, right?
Yeah.
Which is reasonable.
Yeah.
You know, if you're like an obligate carnivore, where it's like if you eat anything else, it's gonna kill you. Then
Maybe some people have the opinion that that's not abuse, milking
Right.
cows or
Right.
goat's milk or what have you. It's not
Right, right.
animal abuse because they're not actually slaughtering the animal.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it just depends on the conditions in which they're raised.
Yeah, the conditions.
Well, you guys determine whether it's abuse according to empathy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how you guys would decipher whether it's abuse or not.
Yeah,
But see, if-
suffering. Yeah.
The suffering.
Yeah. But most of the chicken I eat probably isn't, in the best condition.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's, what am I going to do about it?
Not eat chicken.
There you go. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't have to eat chicken.
Yeah.
But I choose to,
Right. So it's an acceptable form of abuse.
I suppose. But I don't really know. If somebody told me that chicken was, in a slaughterhouse, eating its own shit before I ate it, then maybe I would think twice about eating that chicken.
Why would you think twice?
Because they just told me that.
Because is it because it's suffering and forced to eat its own shit, or is it because
Or maybe they just told me that and I'm eating the chicken as they told me that.
Right.
And then it maybe puts it in perspective.
Right,
But you
right.
don't really go into a meal thinking that.
right, awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness. That's the key right there to
There
the
you go.
decision making is the
Yes.
awareness,
Yes,
right?
it is.
Okay, but pretty much you guys I guess you guys pretty much have like a vegan mindset, right? Where you think that animal exploitation is wrong if you have other options.
Yeah.
Right, because you empathize with animals and stuff like that.
You're trying to make us all vegan, right?
Well, I'm not trying to make I'm not really trying to make anything.
No,
I mean,
know.
I'm just asking the
I
opinion.
don't, though. To be honest, I don't have a vegan mindset.
You don't? Why do you
So she's still gonna
I eat meat. I'm going to eat meat nonetheless.
Right. Well, I mean,
They'd be like, and I said, still like, well, it looks really good. I'm going to eat it.
Right. Well, it looks
And
good
then I'll
there.
see how
Yeah.
I feel. Like, I'll take some digestive enzymes, and it might hurt later. But then again,
Right.
you decide to eat meat because that's a choice that you make.
Right. Well, I mean, what's interesting, as you said, right, is that you see how it looks. You see how the finished product looks.
Yeah,
you want the
don't
finished
see-
product,
Yeah, exactly.
but you don't like the animal abuse and the exploitation and stuff.
I think you'll find a lot of people. I'm sorry.
I mean, no, you're fine. I think that a lot of people are gonna say no because it's like society norm, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not around animal abuse every day. I might become a vegan if I was around it every day.
Right.
I think
it's
a lot
the
of
awareness thing.
Awareness, exactly.
I think a lot of people have seen, especially in our world today, have seen those documentaries
Yeah,
and still
absolutely.
choose to eat meat.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Because they forget.
Yeah, they
You know?
forget
Forget, you
or
put it
you
out of
just
your mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.